Hey, welcome back, everyone. I want you to think of some scenarios for me. Say someone mentions a job, and you think, yeah, I could do that. You read a job description, and you try translating it into what your duties are now. Or you hear somebody talk about their civilian career, and you quickly tell yourself, nope, that's probably not for me. You do this without asking questions. There's no real pause to actually think and analyze. You just decide and answer. And it feels normal because as veterans and first responders, it's what these jobs have trained us to do. Assess fast, decide fast, move. But here's the problem. Transition isn't about how quickly you can decide. It's about how accurately you can understand. And most of us don't realize this until we're already in it. Trying to figure out why it doesn't feel right. Wondering what we missed. And then you realize you just weren't curious enough. Because you didn't think that you needed to be. You need to understand that curiosity isn't optional. It needs to be a discipline. But before we get into this topic more, we're going to take a quick break to acknowledge a sponsor of the podcast. As a first responder, control isn't optional. It's how you do your job. But when it comes to buying or refinancing a home, most lenders don't get your world. Police Mortgage does. They specialize in working with first responders, walking you through the process, breaking down your options, and helping you lock in competitive rates without the runaround. Take control of your financial future with people who have your back. Visit policemortgage.com or call 312-499-8878. Police Mortgage, for first responders who are second to none. After almost 5 years doing interviews with veterans and first responders, talking about their transitions, I've heard this play out too many times. You think you're preparing. You're looking at the jobs, you're talking to people, you're getting a general sense of what's out there. Superficially, it can feel like you're on the path to being ready to transition. But in most instances, what you're doing is building a plan on assumptions that you haven't actually tested. And you probably don't have a complete picture. At least not yet. And there's the part nobody likes hearing. A plan built on incomplete information doesn't usually fail immediately. It fails later, when it's harder and costs you more to fix it. So before you decide anything, you need to understand what you'll actually move into, not what it looks like from the outside. You need to know, as best as you can, what it's like in their environment. How does the organization operate, and how are decisions made? What gets rewarded, and what's going to get you in trouble? Where is the success zone? Because that's likely not addressed in the job description. But if you're not asking those questions, you're not preparing, you're guessing. And I get it. As a veteran or first responder, you're used to moving fast and making decisions with limited information. But your transition isn't that environment. And speed there doesn't help you. If you're moving in the wrong direction, you've got to improve your understanding before you commit to anything. We all know people who they went after that job that looked perfect on paper, only to realize too late that the environment or the culture didn't fit them. Then they're stuck trying to adjust, or they quit, or worse, they get fired because they weren't curious and better prepared to choose from a position of control. However, much of that is avoidable, but only if you're willing to take the time to actually see what's in front of you. Don't think of curiosity as slowing you down. Being curious is what will keep you from having to backtrack. So ask more, talk to more people, and don't rush the process because it seems okay on the surface. And here's another thing. For most of us, the real problem isn't that you don't know enough. It's that you might think you already do. However, it's not just about getting information. It's about getting the right information. And it's likely that you'll avoid questions because you won't know what to ask. As a veteran or first responder, you've built your reputation on being decisive and capable. Whereas now you're going to be stepping into an environment where you don't have that same built-up capability. But instead of leaning into that and seeing that new environment as exciting or as a positive challenge, most of us try to protect what we're used to. We stay within what feels familiar. We evaluate new careers through the lens of what we already know instead of what we can learn. Or the opposite. We overestimate our ability to learn quicker than we actually can. And here's the trade-off. You might be making this without realizing it. By not being curious and truly examining where you can end up, you choose short-term comfort over long-term clarity. And that will catch up with you. Because when you finally get to your transition, you're not just dealing with new decisions. You'll be dealing with the realization that the way you've been seeing things might not be accurate. And that's where we really start to feel it. So what do we tend to do? We double down on what we already know. We avoid situations where we might feel exposed. We stick to what feels safe. And then we convince ourselves that doing this is being in control, but it's actually avoidance. Whereas on the other hand, being curious does the exact opposite. Curiosity forces you into that space where you don't have the answers yet, where you have to ask questions that might make you feel stupid, where you have to admit to yourself that there are gaps in your total package. That's the part most of us resist, because we haven't been in a position where we've had to learn like that in probably a long time. But those who adjust well later, they've already gotten comfortable being curious right now. They've already started asking those questions that expose their limitations. They've already been in those conversations where they don't fully understand everything and they push through anyway. And they've already let go of needing to look like they've got it all figured out. So as you close in on your transition, that's where the real pressure shows up. You'll probably feel like you should already have all the answers. And that's when you need to ask more questions. Because the real adjustment isn't external, it's internal. It's how you see yourself when you're not the expert in the room. And if you're not willing to go there now, you'll be forced to go there later. But later doesn't give you the same margin for adjustment. Because when you step into that next environment, they'll be watching how quickly you adapt to who you need to be. And it's important to understand how things actually play out in the civilian world. They can tell almost immediately who's been asking questions and who's been assuming. You'll get into conversations, and within a few minutes, they'll know if you understand what their environment is about or if you've just told yourself that you do. They can tell the ones who have done the work because you ask specific questions, not the surface level stuff. And that tells them that you're paying attention and you're ready to work, that you're not about trying to impress them with what you've done, but showing that you understand where you're going or that you're trying to learn. However, the ones who haven't, you're going to talk in generalities. You're going to rely on your hero stories. You'll take what you've done and force it to fit how you think this new environment operates. And you'll assume accountability and responsibility simply map out the same way as they've done in these careers. But I'll say it again, it doesn't. And your lack of understanding will not be subtle. So from a hiring standpoint, this is where curiosity makes or breaks you. If you're not asking the right questions, you'll miss how the organization actually runs. You'll miss what matters. And you'll miss what they're really looking for. Now, don't get me wrong. It's very possible that you can still get hired. But getting in without really understanding what you're walking into, that's where the real problems start. Because now You're inside an environment you don't fully understand. And they're not simply evaluating your background anymore. They're watching how fast you adapt to their environment, how you read people, how you adjust your communication style, and how you handle situations where the rules might not be as clear as what you're used to. On the other hand, when you're curious, you move faster because you're paying attention. You ask better questions. You learn while you're maneuvering. And you don't assume you understand everything, but you try to figure it out. Whereas those who aren't, they hit friction early. They misread the people and the environment. They push too hard when they should pull back. They stay quiet when they should be talking. They rely too much on what worked before, and they often don't realize that it's not working now. And here's your reality check. When you're operating this way, where you just assume you know everything, few, if anyone, are going to make sure that you have a safety net. They'll simply let you sink yourself. Now, take it a step further. If you're thinking about doing your own thing, building your own business, and stepping into a world where there's limited defined structure, curiosity isn't just helpful, it's everything. Yeah, there's a million books out there on being an entrepreneur, but none will give you your playbook. They'll only give you guardrails because they weren't written just for you. And if you're not asking questions, testing ideas, learning how success actually works, or you're thinking, hey, I'll just fake it till I make it, that faking it can get expensive and can fail very fast. So here's what you need to understand before you ever get there. Curiosity is visible. It's in how you prepare. It's in how you show up. And it's in how you adapt and adjust. So now the question isn't whether curiosity matters. It's whether you've been actually using it. And if you haven't, this is where you decide if you're going to keep guessing or start being deliberate about what comes next. However, before we get into the specific transition group tips, we're going to pause for another break. There's a moment in life when you realize it was never about you. Grind, spelled G-R-N-D, is different. There's no I in it on purpose, because the mindset was never about ego. It's about the mission. Started by a former Army Ranger, it's not about where you are. It's about how you show up. Different lives, different pressures, but the same mindset. Grind isn't clothing you wear just to look good. It's a reminder of why you keep going when it gets tough, and you keep putting in the work when no one's watching. For the early mornings, the late nights, the reps that no one sees. This isn't just fashion, it's fuel. Because real work isn't loud, real effort doesn't need applause, and real purpose doesn't quit. Head on over to thegrndcollective.com and use the promo code TRANSITION15 for 15% off your order. No matter where you are in relation to your exit date, curiosity can make you. But not being curious will most definitely break you, or at least make you feel like you got one busted off in you. Close range group. If you're less than a year out, or maybe you've been forced into it a lot sooner than you'd planned, this is where you stop assuming you understand anything on the outside. It's very simple. You need to start asking better questions. Not later, right now. Every conversation you have, every job that you look at, every opportunity you consider, slow it down. Don't jump to it and say, yeah, I can do that. Start with, help me understand this. Or if you think you already understand it, how can I better understand it? Ask people what their day actually looks like. Ask what surprised them when they first got into it and what still surprises them now. Ask what they didn't realize about their position or their company until they were already in their role. And don't stop at one answer. This is not just collecting information. You're comparing perspectives. Because right now, every assumption you carry forward is something you're most likely going to have to correct later, with no margin to figure it out. This is where you get honest with yourself. If you're not asking questions, you're guessing. And guessing, especially this late in the game, will cost you. Medium range group. If you've got a few years before you get out, this is where you shift how you prepare. Stop focusing only on the roles and start studying environments. You might think you want a certain position, but you probably don't know what kind of organization you actually operate well in. The role could be ideal, but the company might not. Are you somebody who needs structure, or do you want flexibility? Do you prefer fast moving and changing, or something that's more consistent? How do people communicate in that environment? Are they direct, or is it more about protecting how the employees feel? What's the overall culture of that organization? Those things can matter more than the job title. So start doing your research now. Talk to people in your target industry, as well as different industries. Learn how they operate. Identify the companies that feel natural to you and the ones that don't. Because a good job in the wrong environment is still going to feel like a bad decision. And if you don't figure that out until you're already in it, you'll most likely be regretting your decision from day one. Long range group. If you're early in your career and your transition isn't for at least a decade, this is where you build something most other veterans and first responders overlook. It's awareness. Not just of what's happening in your immediate surroundings, but what's happening outside of it as well. Stay connected to how technology changes. Study how careers evolve and how to develop yours to be the most marketable when you leave this one. Pay attention to what skills become valuable, as well as which ones die out. And always make sure you're proficient in what becomes valuable. Most important, avoid letting your entire understanding of the professional world come from inside these environments. Because many times, our worlds are not case studies for business success. And if the first time you really look outside this world is when you're turning the doorknob at your transition, you're going to be overwhelmed. Those who are best prepared are the ones who were paying attention long before they needed to act. But no matter where you are in your transition preparation, the move is the same at its core. Stop rushing the answers. Because the moment you decide you understand something too early, that's usually where you're wrong. And if you're looking for more ways to stay ahead of that, I put out a weekly newsletter with additional insights, resources, and things to help you improve your planning for your transition. If that's something that you're interested in, there's a link in the show notes. Please head on over and sign up. So, whether you like it or not, at some point, your transition will happen. And if your pattern is answering questions without really knowing or asking, you'll do it then as well. That's how it works, because you'll have trained yourself to move that way. And the part that doesn't get talked about enough is nobody's going to stop you. No one is going to pull you aside and say, hey, you're missing it. No one's going to slow things down so that you can figure it out. You'll move forward and you'll believe that you're on the right path until something is no longer right. And whether that realization is a loud smack across the face or just a subtle tap on your shoulder, it's going to be there. It might be the job you took because someone told you, hey, you'd be great for that. But then you're in it and you realize, yeah, it's not a fit for you. Or maybe the job is exactly what you wanted, but the company is an absolute nightmare to work for. Regardless of the what, it will catch up with you. And it won't be because you didn't have options. it'll be because you didn't take the time to make sure it was the right option for you. So as things start to get closer and transition becomes more real, the question won't be what's available. It'll be whether you've been curious enough to evaluate the complete picture before you decide it's right. Thanks for staying until the end. Staying all the way through definitely helps the engagement ratings. Please send me your comments. I'd like you to be honest with me. Tell me what you like. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. That's the only way I can make changes that best benefit you. Also, please share the podcast with anybody who you think will enjoy it or benefit from it. And if you're not already, please follow the podcast. Your next objective. Stay safe, and I'll catch you on the next one.